Hi, welcome to the Go Higher Frequency Astrology channel. My name is Suzanne. I pre-write these scripts and I started writing this on January the 23rd. I was aiming to release this full moon in Leo video early next week. But with another killing of a United States citizen in Minneapolis today, I felt the need to rush this video to release. While Neptune is in Pisces, it's ruled by Jupiter in Cancer, but Neptune is entering Aries on the 26th, and then it will be ruled by Mars. And Mars will perfect its conjunction to Pluto the day after. I've been a bit apprehensive about this conjunction as it usually indicates violence and military action, which we're already seeing. And I'm afraid this is leading up to something that is going to quickly get out of control as we lead into this full moon and then into the solar eclipse. But as you'll see later in this video, Ivan Krastev talks about the revolution that Trump seems to want to control, and he warns that you can't control revolutions. Revolutions control you. I look at a few charts for this full moon video, and I've posted timestamps below in case you want to skip around. As Saturn and Neptune were still locked into their conjunction at the last degrees of Pisces, we started to see clear signs of our allies waking up. It's finally sinking in that the old order has ruptured so much that it can no longer be saved. We are entering a new world order, one that must be faced with both honesty and directness, the Aries archetype. With the nodes in the channel of community, the North Node in the gate of friendship and line of leadership by example, some leaders are rising to the top. World leaders like Mark Carney, who delivered a speech in Davos, which resonated so much with the reality of this time. I'll play you a clip of this speech that gets to the core essence of this Saturn-Neptune conjunction.
Not through violence alone, but through the participation of ordinary people in rituals they privately know to be false. Havel called this living within a lie. The system's power comes not from its truth, but from everyone's willingness to perform as if it were true. And its fragility comes from the same source. When even one person stops performing, when the greengrocer removes his sign, the illusion begins to crack. Friends, it is time for companies and countries to take their signs down. For decades, countries like Canada prospered under what we called the rules-based international order. We joined its institutions, we praised its principles, we benefited from its predictability. And because of that, we could pursue values-based foreign policies under its protection. We knew the story of the international rules-based order was partially false, that the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient, that trade rules were enforced asymmetrically. And we knew that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the accused or the victim. This fiction was useful. And American hegemony in particular helped provide public goods, open sea lanes, a stable financial system, collective security, and support for frameworks for resolving disputes. So we placed the sign in the window. We participated in the rituals. And we largely avoided calling out the gaps between rhetoric and reality. This bargain no longer works. Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition.
People were surprised by his speech because he's usually more subdued and largely stays out of the spotlight. He has a background in business and he ran, I think, the Bank of England for a while, or another prominent bank in England. But you see that Uranus has entered his first house and is still conjuncting his ascendant. And it's really describing how there is a disruption with how people are viewing him and potentially a disruption with how he's viewing himself. And, he has a lot of planets on the Virgo Pisces axis where the nodes have been transiting. And he had a Saturn return last year. And the North Node on the day of this speech was directly conjunct his natal Saturn. So he's been preparing for this moment. He's just now speaking out. Thought leaders like Dr. Stacey Patton called attention to another side of this clarity. She said this on her Substack in response to his speech. The most dangerous part of the end of the illusion is not that the lie is dying, it is that a new common sense is being born. A common sense that says that some people will always be on the menu. Black people, immigrants, and colonized people have lived in that world for a long time. What's changing is that the people who once felt insulated from it are finally being told the truth, which is that the protection was never meant for them. Oof, that was very powerful and frankly true. And we're starting to see that our own rights are being eroded. And, people often respond when they are personally affected. And that's what we're seeing today. She paints a much harsher view of the future than Mark Carney, one that the pragmatic side of me feels I must prepare for, while the optimistic side of me hopes against all hopes this won't last for long. Aquarius, at the end of the day, is a pragmatically optimistic sign. Capricorn tends to be more depressive than Aquarius because Aquarius is oriented toward the future. I have to repeat a quote from T. Susan Chang about this decan of Aquarius so you can hold some hope in your heart too. I just recently brought out this quote for a video I did about people who were born between 1985 and 1986 because they're experiencing their Pluto square this year. The Pluto and Scorpio generation are going to be experiencing their Pluto square as Pluto transits Aquarius. And Pluto in Scorpio is about transforming through intense experiences. And so, of course, we're all going to go through these intense experiences with them. Okay, so this is the quote. The purifying stream, the rebirth of hope, here excommunicated, unique, untethered, we are free to look back upon the civilization we left behind and imagine what a better world might look like. We are free to think outside the box. In fact, we have no choice but to, because there is no going back inside it. Forsaking the familiar and striking out for new lands, the name of the game is risk. Abandoning comfort and embracing hope. The Five of Swords, the long, dangerous journey of the immigrant or refugee, leaving behind everything that once sheltered us. We strike out for a life where we begin with nothing but freedom. If you watched my 2026 preview video, you'll remember my analysis of the Human Design New Year chart, which happened on January the 21st. This New Year chart was activated the day after Trump's speech in Davos. If you remember, I cautioned that if we tried to force things during this time, they would not work. Jupiter was exactly conjunct Trump's design Mars and Saturn conjunction in gate 53, or the gate of beginnings. His Mars and Saturn are in detriment here. And it describes the backlash he experiences when he takes hasty actions after experiencing just a little bit of success. He is eager to force the new cycle ahead because he does not have the patience to wait any longer. But he will most likely pay a price for his impatience. Saturn is still in the last line of the gate of crises, a crisis that feels manipulative. As we are looking beyond, looking forward to motiveless action. Saturn is in detriment here, described as a profound sorrow and cynicism that is not diminished by the understanding that darkness is self-annihilating. Darkness is ignorance. Madness looms as long as there is ignorance. Ignorance is the great darkness. Everything that I speak to is probably going to be heading very fastly into this full moon. So I'm trying to release it early. But whatever happens during that Mars-Pluto conjunction will bring us into a new reality. We will begin to see through the view of motiveless actions on the 28th as Saturn joins Neptune in gate 25, the gate of innocence. Now, Neptune has been veiling this a little bit, but when Saturn joins, there will be a new sense of reality to this veil. It'll add disillusionment to what we thought was motiveless actions at the time. It's not all of us. It might not be all of us. I know a lot of people are already feeling disillusioned, but it'll bring a new sense of, oh shit, this is where we're headed. I've been a bit apprehensive about the Mars-Pluto conjunction, to be honest, because it can definitely indicate a use of force, military activity, or other violence. And as I write this, as Mars is approaching Pluto, it does seem that this is starting already. Another American citizen has been shot in Minneapolis, which is, I'm sure, going to stoke further tension and might motivate the administration to send in troops. I really hope not, but it's looking pretty bad right now. Now, this is all leading up to the full moon in Leo on February the 1st. And this is the Queen's moon, as Raven Caldera calls it. It's a full moon that indicates acting out for attention and cautions against overreach. Caldera specifically describes someone born during this full moon as at their best ruling a small, intimate kingdom, shining their light, drawing people in rather than extending beyond their reach and losing control of those at the edge of her kingdom. Now, you can see this happening in a variety of ways with our allies, with some of the independent voters in Trump's orbit, many different ways that this is already happening. Now, this full moon highlights Trump's out of bounds Pluto. And I've been talking about how this signifies times of empire expansion when Pluto is out of bounds in Leo. And we see that desire playing out in him as he expands his reach out toward the Northern Hemisphere. And as chairman of this board of peace, which was supposed to be about rebuilding Palestine, but seems to be more about having a counterpoint to NATO, which is interesting because the US is the country that started this organization. And now we're starting another organization to counterpoint it. I've heard people describe his actions as the new imperialism. We already had a new imperialism in 1870, but I wanted to look up some common dates defining this period. And one of those dates is the Berlin Conference, which describes this new imperialism. And this is otherwise known as the Congo Conference. This was a conference that tried to organize the scramble for Africa so that countries would not go to war with each other over territory. And I noticed that Neptune was at the very degree of the recent Uranus-Jupiter conjunction that happened on April 21st, 2024. And this is also the day of Hitler's birthday. I had already been aware of this and was really curious about this conjunction and what that meant for the US. And it's in the human design gate called splitting apart. And it's in the line about fragmentation. This conference brought together other European leaders to define the country's fate, leaving out the leaders of Africa entirely. And instead of keeping war at bay, it introduced a pressure cooker that led to World War I. And it reminded me about the Board of Peace because it's organized to decide the fate of Palestine while ignoring the people of Palestine entirely. And here we go again, splitting apart from our allies, further fracturing the power of the West. How little we seem to learn from history. But perhaps we have little choice in this. Even those who understand the bigger cycles, like venture capitalist Ray Dalio, seems to have made the wrong bet. He chose Donald Trump, who is now pushing us even more aggressively toward the end of the Western Empire that Dalio kept warning other businesses about. We are part of a larger wave that crests and falls. And as much as we try to control nature, it slips so easily out of our grasp. And Ivan Krestoff, on a recent episode with Jon Stewart, recently highlighted the hubris of thinking one can control a revolution. The revolution frequently takes on a life of its own. It was a great discussion. I'll play you a clip of it right now.
Seen this before. In a certain way, this is a revolutionary moment. And he's overtaken, to be honest. The problem with the revolutions is that you cannot run them. They're running you. So at some point, you don't know what you're doing because the speed is overtaking you. You start your radicalizing. If you're going to ask him probably 3 months ago how important Greenland was, he's not going to tell you, but now he cannot stop.
This full moon falls on the cross of refinement. In this line, there's a tendency to dissociate. Like a hypersensitive, sulking child, it's a full moon that fuels avoidance. There is a dissociation because there is a breakdown in the bargain that has united the US since World War II. It's also a breakdown in the bargain with the people of the United States, the people and its leaders, because a majority of the people disapprove of what Trump is doing right now. And he's doing it anyway. You can see this in the two emotional channels connected for the entire collective during this full moon. The nodes are making up the channel of community, and the sun is in gate 19 with Venus and Mercury in gate 49, the gate of revolution. The channel is called the channel of synthesis, and the themes are about the bargain. Contracts and agreements with one's group. It's about loyalty. Combined with the community channel, it's about loyalty and agreements to our communities for the resources that we need. The tariffs, the resources in our communities, all of the budgets that we need, all of the freedoms that we need, that we've agreed that make up a democracy, our rights, all of those are being broken down right now. And if you look at the chart located in Washington, D.C., you see the full moon is on the ascendant-descendant axis with the moon on the ascendant. And you see that Mars has just passed Pluto and is applying to the sun now. The MCIC is on the final degrees of the Aries Libra axis. And the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is in the 9th house, and it's in a yod with the IC. It seems to reflect the adjustment that we are making as we are leaving this old cycle, the old alliances behind, the old agreements with our citizens behind, and how we are making an adjustment to our past and the order and organization of our past. You can see this also reflected in the Sibley chart as Mars is just separated from a conjunction with the South Node. Mars triggers separation or fractures, and our past is one of revolutions or separation from the rule of England. And also, we have a history of fighting each other in the Civil War. So this is nothing new. We're just repeating an old cycle. Now, Neptune is approaching the IC. So there's a veil around America's roots. People are suddenly asking everywhere, who are you? We are asking this internally as well. Who are we at the end of the day? A lot of people have very different ideas of America. And we are fighting for two different visions of America, multiple visions, really, but two very distinct visions, one of democracy and one of authoritarianism. We're going toward Leo, but you never leave the past behind, even if you're going toward the future, this future of one rule, really, this Leo rule. So it's going to be really disheartening if we all go toward this one king's rule. And especially with the people that are in place right now, everybody was so afraid of Obama becoming this dictator. I guess it really depends on who you want in leadership, who you want to be in control, as to whether you agree with an authoritarian rule or not. It's a real slippery slope. And I don't think people really understand that. People are not in control forever. And there's always cycles that will disband and a new cycle will start. So whoever they want to be in control might not always be in control. And then they'll wish for more rights in the future. As Saturn moves into Aries, our new reality will surely settle in more. 2 days after this full moon, Uranus will turn direct. And then we will experience an eclipse right before the Saturn-Neptune conjunction on the 20th. During that conjunction, Mars will be in the gate of revolution and right on the midheaven of the chart set in Washington, D.C. Expect a wild ride that will change us forever. Brace yourself and try not to lose your head during this time. Most importantly, don't forget your health and well-being. If you don't have that, you don't have anything. Okay, I'm wishing you all safety and security, and I'll see you on the other side for eclipse season. Bye.